All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our town hall series. Today, we are fortunate enough to be able to sit down with Oakland mayoral candidate Loren Taylor. We're very excited. We have so many questions, and I know Loren is excited to help us out with answers. But if we want to go ahead, before we get started, I want to let everybody know that we are recording this webinar. And then I'm going to read you a quick disclaimer that we kind of do as a customary before all of our webinars. So the information that you are about to hear is for general information purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. Please keep in mind that every situation is unique and the laws, rules, and regulations may have changed before, during, or after this webinar. Before acting, please be sure to obtain tax and/or legal advice from a licensed professional. The opinions and viewpoints expressed during this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of EBRHA or our members. All right, let's get started. So we have obviously Loren Taylor here as our featured candidate for our town hall series. This session will be moderated by EBRHA board member Joshua Polston. Joshua has been a board member with EBRHA since 2017. So thank you so much, Joshua, for being here and preparing some lovely questions today. Also, one of our other moderators, of course, is EBRHA CEO Derek Barnes. So we are very excited to have you all here. I see a lot of guests in attendance. So what we'd like to do right now is I'm going to launch a poll, and I'd like for everybody to answer two quick questions for us. So let me go ahead and pull this up on your screen. All right. So everyone in attendance, the first question is just asking if you reside in Oakland, which we're pretty sure mostly everybody here does reside in Oakland since you're wanting to vote and wanting to hear from Loren. We want to know, are you a renter, a homeowner or property owner, a rental property owner or manager, other, or not applicable to you? So if you could answer that first question, we just want to get an idea of who's here. And the second question is, if you are a housing provider, what are you planning to do with your portfolio in Oakland in the near future? We'd love to know if you're looking to increase your portfolio, looking for more investment opportunities, keeping your portfolio about the same, or if you're considering selling or exiting the market, divesting your portfolio in Oakland, or not applicable. If you're not a property or a housing provider, you can just say NA. So I'm just going to give a few minutes to let everybody get a chance to answer those questions. The panelists we can all see, so we want to make sure that the questions that we're asking and topics we're discussing today are relevant to all of you here today with us. And if you are a rental property owner or manager and not yet a member with EBRHA, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you and hopefully have you attend more of our town halls and other events that we host, which we're going to talk about at the end. All right, we've got more people trickling in while people are answering the poll. So I'm just going to leave this up here for a couple of minutes. And while I leave this up, I'd like to give our moderators, Derek and Joshua, an opportunity to introduce themselves. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Joshua.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your day to find out more about the mayoral candidates here in Oakland. So just so you know, this is the first of three in a series. We are going to be interviewing or actually giving the candidates a chance to speak about their issues, and we'll be kind of focused on, of course, EBRHA housing-focused topics. In terms of how I got here, I am a small housing provider, as many of you. I own a few properties here in Oakland, and I've been doing that while keeping a W-2 job full-time as well. So I'm definitely kind of the prototypical small investor trying to build equity and also be involved in the community. And I'll pass it off to Derek.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua, and welcome, everyone. And my name is Derek Barnes. I'm the CEO of East Bay Rental Housing Association, and I, too, am a small property owner and a resident of District 3. And just for those who don't know about EBRHA, just a quick, some quick lines there. We are a nonprofit trade association. We've been in business since 1939. All of us on the call here haven't been with the organization that long, but we do have a number of members. and board members who have been with the organization a very long time, and they're really committed to the work that that EBRHA provides to the community. We have about 1,500 members, and they own and operate about almost 60,000 rental units across Alameda County and Contra Costa County. And what we like to say is that we and our members proudly provide homes to about 140,000 people across the two counties. So a lot of what we do is in the realm of compliance, making sure people understand the laws and making sure that they understand what they need to do to operate housing and rental housing businesses that are safe, compliant, habitable, and accessible. So that's a little bit about the organization. And I am so thrilled to have Loren Taylor here. And Loren and I have known each other for a while. And I know a number of us are very excited that he is running in this mayoral campaign. And so, Loren, why don't we get started and give us, some of, take a few minutes and tell us a bit about yourself and why you're running for mayor of Oakland.
And before you start, Loren, I'm going to take down the poll. So thank you all for participating in that. So I'll go ahead and end that and I'll share the results. And then just to let everybody that's in attendance know, the Q&A is open. So if you have any questions throughout this discussion, please put them in the Q&A. We will have a dedicated time at the end to address the questions. But myself and my colleague Chris will be looking at the questions as we go. So if you do have any questions about EBRHA or anything else, please feel free to put it into the Q&A, and we'll be there watching this the whole time. So thanks so much. And then go ahead, Loren. Sorry to interrupt.
And you are muted, Loren.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for that. It was really good too. You guys missed out.
Ah.
But anyways, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you guys. Appreciate EBRHA, the executive board members, for facilitating this conversation. My name's Loren Taylor. I am a father, a former council member, an engineer, and our city here in Oakland is broken. I'm a professional problem solver, and really this is what I do. Before jumping into more of the intro, I did just want to share that as I am here, a third generation Oaklander raising the fourth generation here in this city, I am committed to making sure that we actually fix these problems versus simply playing politics. I am a small property owner myself, so I understand what many of you are factoring in and what you're going through here in our city. I own the home that my mom grew up in, my grandmother and grandfather's home growing up, and renting that out. It is personal to me, being able to provide housing, also being able to build equity for future generations in my family. And so I just wanted to establish that sort of connection to this organization and those who are on the call. So yes, our city is broken. I'm running to be Oakland's next mayor because I love this city. It has given so much to me. I am committed to making sure that it reaches its full potential, and I'm unwilling to sit on the sidelines as we fail to deliver for Oaklanders the way that I know we could and we should, especially knowing that I've got skills, knowledge, and experiences to bring to the table and actually help us get past our current challenges. Now, our state of emergency in this city, it's not something that just happened. It's because of the corruption, the mismanagement, the self-dealing that has occurred in City Hall, focusing on things that are not relevant to the success, the thriving nature of our residents, our businesses, and creating those opportunities. The same special interests that supported our now recalled and federally indicted Mayor Sheng Thao, they saw that I was going to bring the focus on back to Oakland and back to Oaklanders, and they recruited Congresswoman Barbara Lee to run in this race so that they could continue the same practices, the same policies that the Thao administration had put forward. We in Oakland need to stand up against those forces. We in Oakland need an independent leader that is ready to make the hard and necessary choices that improve our quality of life, that avoid bankruptcy, that keep our community safe, and that deliver on the potential and the promise of Oakland. That's why I'm running. That's what I'm committed to delivering. I'm the only candidate in this race that has experience operating at the local city level, where the rubber meets the road. And I haven't just been holding a seat. I've been delivering tangible results that improve the lives of Oaklanders. So when we talk about public safety, our greatest issue by far, I've actually delivered results. As the District 6 council member, I brought 48 additional officers to the ground on patrol to East Oakland. My district, during my tenure, decreased violent crimes by 8% when the rest of the city increased. In addition, I have been able to secure approval for the encampment management policy, a policy that still hasn't been fully implemented, but under my leadership, it will, because it is designed and when fully implemented, will ensure safety, health, dignity in and around our encampments. I also had the privilege of working on addressing sideshows, bringing traffic mitigations, street calming efforts that actually eliminated sideshows for a number of the neighborhoods in my district that were plagued by them. To create opportunities, I established the ESO Ventures Entrepreneurship Accelerator that brought competence, confidence, and connections, as well as capital, to our East Oakland entrepreneurs, those who have amazing innovation, talent, ideas, and energy, but didn't have those other critical resources to turn their ideas into value that could sustain themselves and future generations. And yes, I am also grateful to have been able to partner with EBRHA on a number of issues to strike the right balance when it comes to supporting small property owners and supporting renters in times of need. That balance is a critical thing that we've got to get right in our city. And I will be completely honest that we have missed the mark. We have biased heavily on the renter side, not understanding the impact on the housing provider side. And that has limited our ability to maintain solid home opportunities for both renters as well as equity building opportunities for Oaklanders. I bring up these examples of doing work on the ground, pulling people together to develop tangible solutions, concrete solutions that deliver results. I bring that up because that's what Oakland needs right now. A mayor with proven experience who's been on the ground, not in Washington, D.C. for the past 3 decades. That's what I am bringing. That's what Oakland needs. And I look forward to partnering more with those here to continue solving our toughest problems, making progress on those, and making sure that Oakland delivers for all of us. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Loren. That was terrific. And so just a reminder for all in attendance today, if you have questions for Loren, just place them in the Q&A section of the Zoom application, and then we will devote some time on the back end of this presentation to take your questions. So I heard a few things in your opening statement, Loren. Can you really distill that down into, for us Oaklanders, the 3 most critical priorities that you see that you have to address and tackle first?
Number 1, safety. We have to make sure that every Oaklander is able to walk anywhere in our city without fear of becoming the next victim. That's foundational for our economy. That's foundational for our residents to be able to stay here, just quality of life. And it's foundational for solving these other challenges, whether it's homelessness or economic opportunities, or even aspects of just education, blight, you name it. Number two, cleanliness. We have to treat our city with the respect and the dignity that it deserves. When we have a cleaner city, people respect it. We uplift the entire community. Many folks, especially our old timers, have said, our city has never looked this bad. Well, that's not acceptable. Every corner of our city should be what I call postcardable. We should be able to take a picture of it and be proud to have that on our postcard. Number three, we have to establish opportunities. Opportunities that are accessible, opportunities that set our residents up for success, both career success as well as business success. So when we talk about this being the best place for businesses to either start, expand, and or move and relocate to. There's a lot of detail underneath that, but with those three priorities, I also have to emphasize we have to be able to do that on top of a solid fiscal foundation. So the financial condition of our city has to be added there as well. We're facing a $130 million structural budget deficit. It's going to take hard choices. It's going to take bringing everybody to the table. I am prepared to do just that.
Great, thank you, Loren. And we're going to get into some of those areas a little deeper as we move further into the conversation here. But want to pivot here a bit to talk about economic growth and investment. What's perplexing, I think, to a lot of us Oaklanders is that while we see the national and sort of Bay Area economies seeming to roar back after the pandemic over the last several years, it feels like Oakland is still closed for business. How do you explain this phenomenon? And more importantly, can you tell us a little bit about how you intend to get us out of this situation?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Oakland must be open for business. I am fully committed to that. Number one is public safety. Underlying why our businesses are leaving is because A, they don't feel safe. B, their customers don't feel safe. We don't have the foot traffic as a result and the clientele. And also, let's acknowledge their employees don't feel safe. We've got businesses that are telling their employees to avoid going out to lunch in downtown because of safety concerns and issues. All of that is an issue. So as far as public safety, I intend to increase our officer count to 800. We're currently at 670. I intend to exit the negotiated settlement agreement that has saddled us with additional bureaucracy. It's costing us $1 million per year. Yes, we still need to have oversight of our police department, but not in such an onerous way. We also will speed up 911 response times by focusing on the attrition, losing 911 dispatchers, focusing on recruitment to expand and increase that, and leveraging technology to be more efficient so that we can quickly respond to calls and triage effectively. When it comes to specifically focusing on the opportunities for our businesses, the direct support, to signal that we are open for business, I have proposed and will ensure that we reduce the business license taxes for all non-real estate rental property businesses by those who are earning $1.5 million or less. We will eliminate business license taxes for them. That will signal that we are open for business. That will signal that we want businesses to start, grow, and expand here. And in addition to that, we have to acknowledge that the bureaucracy, the additional burden of just processes and delayed permits and everything else, it weighs heavily on our businesses to be successful and to thrive here. So two things on that. One, I am proposing as part of my economic development package that we establish a concierge service for our small businesses, where each of our small businesses is given access to a resource that can help them navigate our city bureaucracy so that they don't lose precious time, money, opportunities, navigating City Hall, figuring things out, bumping their head against the wall, we will have someone to help them navigate. In parallel with that, we will have a process improvement effort to where we actually eliminate the redundancies, the unnecessary processes, those that aren't adding value. And for me, it is critical that our building, planning, permitting department not slow down the creation of value. So I am proposing a shot clock on our processes such that the city of Oakland, we have a certain amount of time to get our process complete, our reviews, our inspections, and if we don't complete things in time, then you're allowed to proceed and move forward with your project. We have to commit to being effective, efficient, delivering for our customers, our residents, our businesses, and others, and not being in the way, not being an obstruction, because that means we slow down the ability to create value, we slow down the ability to house people, we slow down the ability for businesses to really get their launching pad. And sometimes slowing down has meant that we actually end up canceling a project that's not able to move forward. Mm-hmm. So those are priorities for me that I believe will help our business economy. And then there are others in terms of creating a more vibrant downtown, more vibrant commercial corridors. We have to leverage programs such as the Vacant to Vibrant program that has been implemented in San Francisco to increase the vitality of vacant storefronts. It's also important that we create opportunities for festivals and other events and activations that bring more energy in and around our corridors, that vibrancy that so many people come to Oakland to experience. I know I went a little bit long, but those are elements of my my plan to make sure that we do have the economic vitality we need and deserve.
Great. Thank you, Loren. I'm going to pass it off to Joshua, who's going to get into the housing policy area and rental market.
Great. Thank you, Derek. And yes, the next couple of questions really focus, I'd say, on the core of where our members live, breathe, and work. It's really kind of where the housing policy and the rental market has gone in this city over the last few years, and kind of what your vision is for the future. So the first question is, as you know, at 3.5 years, the city of Oakland had the longest running COVID eviction moratorium in the entire country. We wear that crown. So my question is, what do you think is so unique about Oakland that got us in that situation and justified such a heavy-handed policy for such an extended period?
So a couple things on that, and you're absolutely right. It is, you know, we shouldn't have been in that situation. When I was on the council when we approved the eviction moratorium, just like other cities. And one of the things that I knew when we were reviewing it is that our elected officials are reluctant to act, especially when there's politically uncomfortable decisions to make. And so my proposal at the time was that we not create a proposal that requires us to end the moratorium with a vote of the council. I presented an alternative that suggested that we create a certain finite period of time and require an affirmative approval to extend the eviction moratorium. If we had set that up, we would have been in a different situation, and we wouldn't have had the long duration of that eviction moratorium. I think the challenge is political will and of some, and the alignment with ideological interest groups of others, and that's what sort of allowed us to be in that predicament. Mm-hmm. It's something that I advocated sort of against, and then afterwards advocated that we sort of review and sort of figure out a path. But once we need 5 votes in order to pass something, that makes it a lot more politically difficult to achieve. Right.
And considering kind of a follow-up to that, you know, I know that with the recent wildfires down in Los Angeles, there are forces down there floating the idea of returning to an eviction moratorium. They're already pushing for a rent freeze. What do you see as the kind of future for those kinds of policies? Was COVID a one and done, or do you see this as a recurring theme for the city?
I think COVID is a one and done. This is COVID was a global pandemic that really sort of rocked us to our core when it came to everyone sheltering in place, suspension of economic activity, you name it, right? We hadn't seen something like that for 100 years prior. And so I don't see us repeating that. I think that wildfires are commonplace, and we can't simply come up with these sort of extraordinary measures for things that are regularly recurring. We've got to figure out a better system, process, and decision.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So the next question has to deal with kind of the overall market in Oakland. You are a property owner, so you may be experiencing this. I don't know if you've had a vacancy recently, but market rents in Oakland are certainly declining or flat at best, while operating costs for everything related to housing, especially insurance, which for many people has doubled or tripled, utilities and repairs have seen large increases. So what do you see as mayor? What kind of changes to Oakland policies that you could pursue or to support that would help many of the small rental housing providers and encourage them to continue to operate in this city?
Well, I think you get it. Basically, the core point is that we have been, I think the decision makers within the city on the whole have been pretty ignorant to what it takes to be a home provider in our city. Decisions have been made without understanding the incremental costs that are being added and levied without the ability to recoup those costs or make property ownership viable. I have seen how small mom and pops who care about the community, are invested in the community, connected here, they offer better housing solutions, more compassionate, understanding sort of decision-making and priorities than corporate landlords, large folks who are just looking at numbers. But the policies that we're implementing are essentially the assets, the properties, et cetera, that are owned by smaller, more connected mom and pops into the hands of corporates that are doing exactly what I think a lot of the policymakers are wanting to avoid, but they're actually pushing us more towards that. And so it requires that we have better conversations, insight, and understanding of what's needed to allow a mom and pop property owner to be successful and effective. We need to look at how fair rent is calculated in terms of what an appropriate increase could be for accommodating these increased costs that are there. I know that the formulas have been challenging at best to manage and navigate through so that we can recoup the costs of providing homes. I think we also have to look at the additional burden of legislation, really understanding that, hey, when we impose this policy, this need, et cetera, if we're not able to pass a fair portion of that on to the tenants, then that adds the additional cost and burden. And when we are able to pass it on to the tenants, that just increases the cost of rent, which is one thing that I know folks are trying to avoid and reduce and minimize. So those are, I guess, a couple thoughts as far as that. And then also having better representation. We need to have representation from property owners on key boards, commissions, advisory committees, and even in the mayor's office.
Absolutely. Because one of the ideas that people floated is that surely we have a rent control environment. That's a bit of a given, but considering that many of the costs, especially when it comes to voter approved initiatives that are direct costs for property owners, and there have been a number of special assessments and different measures, but the ability to essentially be agnostic and just see those as a pass-through for the renters. So it really doesn't hit. I don't know if that's something that you've heard about or considered, but I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I do believe that we need to allow some of those options that do have pass-throughs. I think that renters or voters, they're benefiting from the sort of these special assessments, allocations, et cetera. It probably, I'd probably look at what the intention of the tax collection is. If it's something that just as equally impacts or benefits renters and homeowners and others, then yeah, it seems reasonable that it would get passed through. So I think what I'm saying is that what you describe makes sense. I am supportive of that. Obviously, the benefit, those who are benefiting should be also those who are contributing to the investment.
Great, thank you. And the next question is kind of focused on that, call it this, the suite of regulations. So Oakland, of course, has placed a lot of their focus, their political focus and regulatory focus on tenant protections, rent control, just cause, and pretty extreme rent control caps, which are, capped now at 3% or less, based on a formula that is very much disadvantages the housing provider. So the question is, we have all of these elements of government involvement in the housing market, but rents are still relatively high in this area compared to other parts of the country. So I guess it's a fundamental question, do you think that these different parts of what are considered the standard, kind of progressive toolkit are even helpful? Do they help create rental property growth? Do they help create, rental housing opportunities for people in Oakland?
I believe that rent control is helpful for keeping a targeted number of people in their homes that otherwise would not be able to. On a larger scale, I don't believe that rent control us to get to the sustained market conditions that create broad affordability across the board. And I believe that our goal should be to where we establish a market-driven solution that is sustainable. And that means we have to create more housing. We have to grow housing more so that demand is equal to supply, or supply rises to meet demand. And in that way, keeping costs under control. Right now, I will say, yes, rent control artificially increases rental costs for everyone except for those that are directly benefiting, and it's a much smaller portion of the residential community. I wouldn't. I'm not advocating for getting rid of rent control, but we do need to have a balance in how it's being deployed versus how natural growth that gets us to market-driven sustainability.
Great, thank you. And it's always good to hear actual economic terms used in a discussion of the issues versus aspirational ideas. So getting to that, kind of following up on your last point, what are your ideas and solutions for increasing housing production and inventory in this area? Considering that, obviously housing production costs are high. I've recently read that, production of a, quote unquote, affordable unit is, upwards of $1 million per unit. So what are your ideas to create this housing that the market is desiring?
Thanks for that question. And I do want to just emphasize that the only candidate in this race who has experience on the ground level in our city, local government, driving real results. So as a council member, I worked with affordable housing developers, community members, other partners to usher in more than 800 units of affordable housing into the development pipeline in District 6, East Oakland. Actually navigating the nuances the community needs, helping to bridge those gaps. So this isn't theoretical for me. When we talk about solutions to increase housing, yes, we need to build more. We need to build more affordability. We also need to look at other ways. At $1 million, we're not going to build our way out of this. We have to look at acquisition of existing properties and assets that are a lower cost per unit and allow us to house people affordably by acquisition versus new builds. We also have to look at new ways of building construction design. So modular housing, where we're building off-site and then bringing it in to reduce the overall cost, allow for economies of scale, et cetera. Reducing permitting costs and time on site. We also need to look at affordable by design, where folks are designing different types of housing that are needed and required. So maybe shared common space or infrastructure and other things like parking or laundry and others to reduce the overall cost to the tenant. I'm also a huge proponent of not just building rental housing, but building housing that people can affordably purchase, home ownership. The ultimate goal should be giving the missing middle and others an on-ramp into home ownership and building their own equity and intergenerational wealth creation. So I am very intent about figuring out how we can incentivize more condominium conversions, building of condos to where our residents who can't necessarily afford a standalone single building, they can have access to an asset that grows along. So those are some of the thoughts. And as far as development and building more, we've got to, as I said, get government out of the way. So a shot clock for building and planning department, where we force a faster review process on the city, by the city, and other solutions to reimagine what permitting could and should be, and making sure that we implement the technology and the tools to do so.
I see. So similar in some ways to what the state has done with the ADU laws, where essentially they get 60 days to make a decision, and then it kind of default goes to an approval if they don't come up with a response.
Similar, exactly.
Yeah, I see. Great. Next question has to do with kind of some of the, going back to this issue of the shifts for some of the smaller mom and pops, and how do you see the displacement trends, smaller mom and pop rental owners impacting our community long term, especially many of the immigrants, Black and brown communities that are essentially not able to, participate to build this wealth and, grow equity in the community. And how would you specifically kind of help these small business owners get into the rental housing business to retain their investments and grow them?
So another sort of point on this is that this is not something theoretical for me. This isn't something I read about in a book or somebody told me a story of their experience. My family has benefited from the gradual wealth creation through home ownership, turning a home that one of our sort of elders passed on to us into a rental property to create wealth that gives us that safety net, that solid foundation, like the home that I have in North Oakland that my mom grew up in. So yes, we have to be able to support home ownership, property, sort of purchasing of property as a tool of wealth creation for lower income, Black, brown, under-resourced communities. It is a tool that has served well. It has given folks a foothold of moving from lower class to middle class, and it's something we have to promote and support. One thing that I'm focused on is when it comes to wealth transfer, our communities are losing a lot of value and potential by having potentially inherited properties transition through the probate process, lack of will, estate planning, et cetera, to where we're not keeping that intergenerational wealth in our community, in those families, so that they can benefit from what grandma, grandpa invested in the 50s and 60s. We've got to support estate planning transfer to keep that in the community and to allow people to maintain a foothold. It's also access is important. So supporting first-time homeowner programs, supporting other initiatives that allow folks to get an initial on-ramp into housing ownership, building of equity. And I mentioned the aspect of creating more affordable means, including condominiumization of apartment buildings to create that access.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps one of the kind of specific strategies, you might call it, is, recently the city of Oakland tightened up the condo conversion process to the point where it's almost prohibited. It's so difficult. That might be one of the policies you might pursue, is relaxing those standards.
It definitely will be. We need to incentivize more of those ownership opportunities, and I am very eager to look at both city policies and state policies to advocate for to address that. And I understand that there are some insurance requirements, challenges, the 10 years of liability that's built into some of these developments that we need to explore and figure out a way that we can kind of manage through that. So I'm not naive to some of the complexities legislatively, but I'm fully committed to working through those and changing them at whatever level of government those obstacles have been in place.
Great, thank you. We're almost getting towards the end here. So the next question is kind of coming back to housing, but for those who don't have homes. And why do you think there's so much homelessness in Oakland? Especially now, even after the pandemic, it's even worse. And what would your approach be to? You touched on some ideas about the encampment policy, but how do you maintain those? How do you remove unsafe encampments and just kind of provide a healthy environment for the residents of Oakland?
Yeah, so you asked why we have high homelessness in Oakland. I think it's a number of factors. We have to acknowledge that, there's a high housing cost here. And so that compounds issues, but that's not the only reason. When we are effectively addressing our unhoused population, the first thing we need to do is engage to archetype, understand who we're dealing with. Some of our unhoused community, they only need first month's, last month's security deposit to be able to get a foothold that they can then sustain themselves with housing. Others need deep mental health support that will likely be required in terms of deeper engagement for a much longer period of time, if not the rest of their life. And they need to be plugged into that mental health system that can support them. And others may simply need workforce training, job skills training. And then others still, they just need a firm hand because they're using this as a lifestyle choice that they otherwise could be moving on and doing other things and being more productive. So understanding who's there, providing the appropriate services to each type of person based on their needs, that's how we move and reduce the amount of homelessness that we have, the intentional services. As far as what I would do, one, we have to measure how we're doing, both at the city level. I am proposing department level performance management. So our public works department, our homelessness division, our Department of Transportation, police, everybody has their clearly stated annual goals. This is what we're trying to achieve. This reduction in encampments, this addition, this amount of people housed, this amount of trash picked up, you name it, right? But if we don't have that clear goal and vision of what we're trying to achieve, measure the progress towards that based on milestone achievement, and publishing that on a regular basis every 2 to 3 months, then we're not going to be able to actually solve the problem. If you don't measure it, you're not going to be able to achieve it. So that's not just for departments, that's also for our service providers that are supposed to be helping our unhoused move from step to step to step in the process towards sustainable housing. I'm an engineer. Measurement, data-driven, results-oriented. That's how we have to lead our city forward. That's what I intend to do. And I think that's a big part of this, how we address our tough challenges like homelessness.
Great. Well, thank you. So I'm going to pivot back to Derek, and he's going to follow up with a few more questions on safety and finances. And you're muted, Derek.
Joshua, I'm like, yeah, all the fun stuff. Right. So Loren, you did in your opening, you talked about public safety. And so, certainly as a Black man in Oakland, and certainly speaking for communities of color who have been impacted by a number of policies. I mean, in this whole conversation around public safety, we still see crime sort of, and lawlessness seeming to be rampant across the city. But how would you specifically address the demonstrable conflicts between greater public safety and social and economic justice?
Again, thank you for that question, Derek. And again, I have to emphasize that for me, it's not just theoretical. I've been on the ground working in community spectrum to work on these issues, these tough issues. And so when it came to the aftermath of George Floyd, where everyone was calling for defunding the police, I stood against removing $50 million from our police department because there was no plan to continue keeping our community safe after doing so. At the same time, I recommitted and actually led efforts to reimagine public safety in a safe way, making sure that we did address historical issues of unconstitutional policing, racial bias, strengthening community police relations, and actually addressing proven violence prevention strategies that we should be investing in to reduce the amount of harm that is being inflicted in our community. That's real experience. I intend to do the same thing when it comes to bridging that gap. We have to engage all of our community while focusing on those things that we hold true, and where we haven't quite figured it out or come to alignment, that's the role of leadership to, hear all of the voices and at the same time say, hey, this is how we need to move forward if we're going to fulfill our mission of keeping everybody safe, holding offenders accountable, and creating the society that we deserve. It's not progressive for us to have our elders and our children afraid to go around our city because of the violence and the potential to become the next victim. It is not progressive or compassionate for us to have folks driving vehicles into grocery stores in order to steal ATM machines and liquor bottles. There are things that are happening that should not be acceptable, but we have permitted because of a lack of will, a lack of political will, because of a lack of commitment to actually ensuring the quality of life that we deserve here in Oakland. And that's what I'm running to solve.
Thank you, Loren. I'm going to pivot to the budget, infrastructure, and public services. And so we, EBRHA, and some of my colleagues, and community leaders have been in conversations with multiple city council members lately, including the interim mayor. And there's something in this conversation too of Oakland being a low resource city. And we want to push back on that and bring it to the attention of our public officials. Is that, it's not that there's no money. There is money. We have a $2 billion budget, so that comes from somewhere. And I think the question is, when it comes to Oakland and its budget, how it derives its money, how do you explain the low service levels that we currently see in the city? You've been inside the city, you know how it operates, you've been up close and personal. What's going on?
Yeah, it's frustrating. For a city with a $2 billion budget, we should not be living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet, and on the brink of fiscal insolvency. Number one, let's see. I think my laptop's about to die. Let me just see how much time I have left. All right, I think I'm good for now. Apologies for that. Number one, we have to make sure that we are not committing ourselves to spend more than the revenues that we have coming in. Folks have been unwilling to say no to good ideas that we can't afford. We have to have the leadership that is courageous and bold enough to make the decisions we all know need to be made, even if it's not popular and you have to say no to your historical allies and supporters.
Mm.
We've got to prioritize the fiscal longevity of our city over a quick win, a returning a favor, or simply going with the flow. We've kicked the can down the road long enough, and there's no road left to kick it down. When it comes to other aspects of dysfunction and mismanagement, again, I focus on performance management, data-driven decision-making, results. If we aren't managing well our resources, allocating them effectively, evaluating programs that do and don't work, finding opportunities for improved efficiency, then we are going to spend more than we need to get the bare minimum done. We've seen that. There are many opportunities to improve, and that's what I intend to focus on as well. We've got to look at how our decisions that we make today saddle the next generation of leadership, the next generation of Oaklanders with disproportionate amounts of debt that keeps them from being able to balance a budget effectively. That is a reality, that we have significant unpaid pension liabilities because past leaders have given a green light for pensions that we didn't have a path to being able to pay for. And so that's why we're paying more than $130 million in interest payments per year to CalPERS. We've got to figure out ways to unsaddle ourselves from that. Number one is the conversation around how we reduce the cost of that pension liability through a refinancing, restructuring of that debt, taking a 7% interest payment down to 4.5% or 5%. Saving there, that would get us $20+ million that would free up of expenses that are currently on our P&L and on the statements that we're making. So we've got to look at new ways, innovative ways to reduce costs. We also have to grow within our city. When I was on the council, again, apologize for getting into deep weeds, but this is what I believe is necessary in order to solve our problems in a meaningful way and do so sustainably. And so I wanted to give the example. When I was on the council, SB 293, Senator Skinner's bill, was being pushed forward for a Howard Terminal to create an ability to create enhanced infrastructure financing districts to pay for Howard Terminal, bringing anticipated future revenues from a development project to pay for a bond that we take out today that will allow for a catalytic project like Howard Terminal, which we know did not move forward. But for me, it was important that we not only have a carve out, a special policy state law that allows for Howard Terminal, but I redlined and had them improve so that it was applicable to the whole city, not just the Howard Terminal project. So now if we want to create catalytic investment in East Oakland, in West Oakland, in another part of the city, we have the pre-approval to do so and a mechanism to fund, finance, create growth that then has sustained revenue, recurring revenue for our city. That's how we address a structural deficit.
Great, thank you, Loren. And I want to kind of go sideways here a bit, but still kind of in the framing of our budget and sort of aligning our core needs to what we have to spend. And so when we talk about sort of big projects across the city, they're often linked to some larger aspiration or larger vision for the city. Do you think that the city currently has a macro vision? if you think it does, do you think that vision is well known enough so that when it comes to aligning a strategic plan or the operating plan against it, that it actually is working? And if there isn't that vision, what do you think we need to do as a community to create it?
So the answer is no, we don't have that unifying vision. We've got piecemeal vision. We got a downtown specific plan. We have a specific plan in a portion of West Oakland. We have different pockets of vision, like Merritt, but we don't have like a comprehensive plan for the city of where we're going to, how these different smaller projects, efforts in different neighborhoods or different parts of the city contribute to that. That absolutely needs to happen. I think the local area specific plans are a good step, but it's insufficient because we need to bring them together and align those visions and how it works. I'm grateful for our 40 by 40 network that is being driven by the Black Cultural Zone and other partners in East Oakland, partnering with Oakland Thrives and philanthropy to bring $100 million of investment to East Oakland. That's, you know, focusing on how we preserve, protect, uplift the existing and displaced Black community there. But that has not been connected to the work that's going on in Lake Merritt or with Chinatown improvement and other parts of the city. And so having that comprehensive view of what's in progress, how that aligns with where we want to be, how we want to show up in 20 plus years, hasn't been done, but it will be a priority for me.
Right. Thank you, Loren. I want to pause here and jump to my colleagues, Chris and Danielle, to see if we have any Q&A, any questions in the Q&A, and it looks like we have a number of them. And we may want to do rapid fire with you, Loren, to make sure that we go through a number of them, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Joshua, did you want to speak to your graph? Did you want to talk about that first or go to Q&A?
No, actually, the graph was related to the last question. And
Yeah.
Okay.
At ship sailed, so thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, let me pull a few out. I've tried to, and you've answered some of these, but maybe we can I'll try and pull some out, hopefully, that you haven't talked to.
Loren, I know that you were getting all excited when you heard that we had a graph.
Hey, visuals like, you know,
exactly.
Pictures worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, people love visuals. In Oakland, the way the power structure is set up, the mayor has limited decision-making capabilities. Most of the power rests in the city council. So how do you plan to proceed, get things done with the way the political system is set up?
Great question.
Yeah. Yes, we do have a weak, strong mayor form of government. Some people call it a strong, weak mayor form of government. But the bottom line is that the mayor doesn't have absolute control. And that is a reality of government. Legislative branch, executive branch have different roles, different powers, but there are opportunities to strengthen the mayor's role, decision-making authority, especially given that they are often seen as the one throat to choke when it comes to how our city is delivering and performing. I do support moving to a strong mayor form of government. And at the same time, when elected into the mayorship, I am not going to use our city charter structure as an excuse for not getting things done. There are other tools available to a mayor right now than the autocratic charter responsibilities, one of which is an ability to influence without authority our elected officials, our council members, and others, understanding what's motivating them, driving them, building relationships, identifying points of common interest. First priority of which is our residents and their needs, and then moving forward on those initiatives and those issues. Leveraging the bully pulpit as well, that is in the mayor's scope. And frankly, when the council is not unified on a particular topic, the mayor and the city administrator have leeway to move forward as needed. There's too many times when we in the city are using the structure of our government, we're using a given board or commission or some other item as an excuse for something we just don't have the political will to do and haven't been sort of taking full accountability for. Under my watch as mayor, we will own the process for our city. We will not abdicate responsibility where it is ours to be had. That has happened too much, frankly, within our city.
Great. I want to give you a chance to clarify. You mentioned as an incentive to small businesses that make less than 1.5 million that they'd be exempt from paying business tax. Does that apply to rental housing providers?
It does not apply to rental housing providers. I believe that an exception is needed for them, and we could talk about that a little bit more, but it's a different type of business. So that is my current proposal.
Okay. Talking about public safety, Oakland has only sworn in 625 sworn in officers. It should be up to 800. You know, how can we do this with the current budget situation? And then tie into that with, you know, Oakland doesn't even have its own jail. You know, is that an issue? How can would that help? Is that something that we could talk about?
Yes. So how do we move to 800 officers given our current budget constraints? Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we are spending a significant amount, multiple tens of millions of dollars on overtime right now. When we get full-time officers, that overtime saving our costs will be avoided because we will have more full-time staff. So that's a source of ongoing funding, is what we would otherwise be spending on overtime, or a significant portion of what we would otherwise be spending on overtime. We also will need some catalytic investments to get to that 800 officer count, because the one-time costs of police academies and other training. And so when we have those, we have to look at where we might be able to get those investments from. Well, we know that the big four companies downtown, PG&E, Kaiser, Blue Shield, Clorox, have already committed $10 million per year to improve safety and vibrancy in the downtown area where they are headquartered. A portion of that investment, we should be able to talk to them, that could help to augment the police academies, or potentially augment a portion of a patrol unit. In addition to that, there are other private companies that are out there that are interested in supporting, investing in a better, safer, cleaner, more vibrant Oakland. But what's holding them back is that our city does not function effectively. We have not proven ourselves to be good stewards of resources. And so, of course, they're not going to throw money away. Under my leadership, we will ensure that our city is performing at a higher level. We are being good stewards, decision makers of the resources that we are granted, such that we will build the confidence in how we operate and be able to attract greater public-private partnership dollars. Also, when it comes to how we look at funding, we've got to change our decision-making on how we allocate funds. We have historically focused on year to year to year funding that says, hey, if we spend this in this year, how does it add? How does it not? And that's the end of the discussion. Well, the reality is some of these investments are longer term, have longer term payouts. And we should think just like businesses when it comes to return on investment and net present value. The net present value of investing in a unit of officers is that we will keep companies here, we will attract more companies here, we will bring customers to spend and add to the tax rolls that we are collecting. We will increase property values and also add to our overall revenue. That has to be factored in when we're making investment decisions in those things that generate growth and revenue creation, like public safety.
Let's see. Centro Legal de Raza has made tens of millions by taking advantage of rental protection policies and pressuring property owners. How would you address this?
Look, I guess that what I will say is that, yes, we have some significant overinvestment into nonprofit services. There are some beneficial values that are being upheld by an organization like Central Legal. It's important for us to evaluate what those investments are, what makes sense, and what is sort of above and beyond what's needed, especially in tight budgetary times where we're looking at a $130 million structural budget deficit. So I can't give you a blanket answer on an organization. Some programs are beneficial, some programs are not. But just as I will have a performance management aligned discussion around our departments, how they're performing and whether or not we continue with certain programs that we're investing in and certain roles, I will do the same for our vendors, our nonprofit partners and for-profit contractors, vendors, et cetera. Are you delivering results as intended, or do we need to take that contract away and focus on other value that we need to create?
Right. What's your position on Oakland Police's pursuit policy and on the governor's CHP assist also as well?
We need the governor's CHP assist. I will beg, plead, everything else to make sure that the CHP stays in Oakland and that they maintain that resource. It has been extremely helpful for us staying on top of the public safety challenges that we have. When it comes to the police pursuit policy, I do believe it needs to be modified to allow pursuits in other situations, one of which is when police on view a crime in progress, even if it's not a violent sort of crime where someone's life is at risk, they should be able to pursue that person and have them realize that you can't come to our city and not be held accountable when you put people's lives in danger, when you reduce the quality of life issues that really hold us back. That is absolutely important. And I did also come up with what I refer to as the smart pursuit policy. The big issue in Oakland is that the lawlessness, people feel like they can get away with anything in our city and not be held accountable for it. So we will pursue you in my administration and we will hold you accountable, but that may not be with a car flying at 60 miles an hour behind you. It may be with a network of drones that we have deployed to overview, surveil, and then pinpoint the location where officers can then safely come to in order to hold you accountable and have that intervention. It may also mean that we're following you with surveillance technology. We have surveillance cameras. We need more across our city, and they provide a network of visibility that we should be able to tap into. And lastly, we've got to be smart relative to how we use the internet network data that's out there in order to follow leads, track them down, and even if it's a couple, 3 days later, be able to show up on someone's doorstep and say, hey, we know you did this. We have evidence. We were able to locate you based on IP address, what have you, everything else. And now it's time for you to sort of face the consequences. So the smart pursuit policy is one that I'm pushing, how we can pursue people without necessarily putting people's lives in danger.
Great. Chris, just a quick moderator's privilege. I want to ask you a follow-up question, actually, because you mentioned it earlier, actually in your opening, that one of your goals is working to stave off bankruptcy. And maybe you could just explain to myself and our members, my understanding is if the city does go bankrupt, the city council would lose all of its fiscal rulemaking ability, a state administrator would come in. Can you maybe just tell us what that looks like and why you think that's a bad idea?
Look, in a situation like this, we have the ability to control our own destiny, or we can abdicate that to somebody else who's disconnected from our community, doesn't understand the impacts of decision, and is just forcing us to do certain things based on a textbook theory. That's never going to be in our best interest It's better for us to take the reins, make the hard, necessary choices that move our city forward and get us through these challenges. So, number one, I want to avoid bankruptcy because we lose control of what happens in that process. A lot of people point to Detroit as an example of a city who went through bankruptcy. Well, let's acknowledge that Detroit, they almost lost their entire archive of art from the Detroit Institute of Art, which had a significant value, an incredible asset, both cultural and beyond. And they were only able to be bailed out because of the high net worth individuals and others that are there in their city. The other thing is that in the state of California, we have limitations on being able to modify retirement and pension costs. It's not as easy to just sort of wipe those things out or, readjust as it is in some other states. So a lot of the benefits that people look at with bankruptcy, we have to be very clear on what we can and can't do because our situation is different and unique.
Great. Thank you for that follow-up.
Yeah.
Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. This one's a little more budget-based also, but with the 3 fire stations closing, how do you address this problem? Is that, there's things we can do to bring those back? Given
Yes.
the current.
Apologies for going off camera. I need to plug my computer in. But as far as the fire stations go, fortunately, the city council has found a way for those dollars to be restored. I think they are using dollars that were freed up from the Oakland Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. And so that we have a path now, and the rest of it, I am very committed to prioritizing the fire stations and making sure that they stay open. It looks like we've got a little bit of reprieve, and prioritizing that in the budget is going to be critical as we bring that 2-year budget forward in the next few months. And that's one of the jobs the mayor will have, is making sure that our budget aligns with our higher priorities. And that's going to be within the first month of coming into office, which is another reason why we need to have a mayor who has been on the ground, knows our city, knows the city budget, and is able to navigate effectively.
Great, thank you, Loren. What is your position on TOPA? Are you, do you have any thoughts on it, or that's basically was the question.
Yeah. So as it comes to TOPA, I actually, when it came forward, I actually did research. I went to DC and met with the administrators and others who have led it, guided it, been impacted by it in Washington, DC. And what I learned is that it is not the cure-all that it has been billed for. The folks that benefit from TOPA, it's limited benefit, I will say. The folks that benefit from it are the hyper well-organized institutions, not individuals, and it adds significant bureaucracy, time, and cost into the property sale process. I don't think that TOPA is right for us right now. I think that it is more cumbersome and it doesn't create the value that it's billed out to be. And so I am not supportive of it as it has been presented or proposed in the Bay Area. I do believe that there are, I will say, better opportunities to create pathways of home ownership than encumbering the entire real estate sales process, which we know as that happens, if you sort of add additional time, cost, bureaucracy into these sort of processes, it ultimately ends up hurting us as a city and our residents and sort of the small property owners more than others.
Do you know what happened with the tiny green homes that were under the freeway off Oak Street? Are you pro tiny homes as a form of housing shortage gap fill?
You said tiny homes where?
Under the, it said, tiny green homes that were under the freeway off Oak Street.
Oh, you're talking about the community cabins,
I think so, yeah.
as the homelessness solution, temporary housing.
Exactly.
I do believe that we need opportunities for temporary housing. I think those community cabins were a good idea. The problem that I see is not the fact that we have community cabins in a location where we otherwise wouldn't have housing or any other development. I think the issue is that we design those as temporary housing, and if we're not appropriately supporting, serving people, getting them the services they need, then they become longer term housing, and that's when it's an issue. If it's temporary housing for 4 months or so, then, and we're bringing the services that help people move on within those 4 months, then I think it's a good thing. If it becomes a sort of a permanent solution where instead of cycling, multiple people through per year and getting them a foothold that then springboards them into sustainable housing, and instead it just becomes a permanent shanty town, that is a problem, and that's what I'm not supportive of.
Yeah. Why do you support rent control, and are you in favor of like a needs and means testing for those that actually need it the most, the most vulnerable that need it the most?
Thanks. Yes, I am supportive of needs testing. I think that's important because we shouldn't be providing these benefits, support for people who don't need it. It is costly. It's has significant impact, and we should be able to apply a needs testing approach for our for those who benefit from rent control. So that I am supportive of. The reason why I do support it is because I see situations where it is valuable and it is needed, but in general, yes, I will say no, not just in general. I do think that that should be worked into the overall rent control policy, because I know many people who make much more than being able to afford market rate rent, but are taking advantage of the rent control policies, and that should be curbed.
You talked a little bit about homeless, but do you have what are your plans for mentally ill that are roaming the streets? Take care of them.
Sorry, that was related to the plans for addressing unhoused on the streets?
Just a question about mentally ill, I guess. Is there a way to help those that not just need housing but other services like
there's absolutely a way to help those, and I believe that we need to be very heavy leaning on our county. We have to acknowledge that we as a city are not funded for healthcare, mental health, physical health, or the social services. Those dollars come from the feds through the state to the county, and so we need the county to step up and actually deliver better mental health services, deeper mental health services that actually come into the community and guide people through, not take on their job and their responsibility when we don't have the budget to even address our core services that we're supposed to be providing and funded for. So yes, we need it. Yes, if there are folks that that I think are helping to triage, our unhoused population, identifying those who do need the help and the support, and then holding those service providers, whether it's Bay Area Community Services, other homeless service providers, or the county, accountable for doing their job. I think that's our job, is oversight, advocacy, and making sure that these other partners are doing what they're supposed to do when we're not funded to do so.
Thank you. Well, I think you've answered most of the other questions on you've covered. So that's all I've got as far as from the Q&A.
And I just wanted to share, because I know you are a consultant, so you appreciate data. This was kind of a little quick snapshot we took just to show that, Oakland, how it relates to other cities, near us that are adjacent, as well as other cities in the state that have a similar level of population and demographic profiles in terms of their overall resources. And so, Oakland
thanks for that. And that's just thousands of dollars. Or is there another unit?
That's in thousands of dollars per capita, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But essentially it just shows it how it relative that it's, it's not necessarily the highest resource city in the state, but it's certainly not at the bottom either. And, compared to some of the other, even Bay Area, like Hayward, which has quite a low overall budget per capita. But it's similar to other, examples. Oakland is often compared to Long Beach as a good kind of comparison city. And so you can see that it's in the range of where a Long Beach is, and much higher than somewhere like Sacramento as well.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It definitely is a testament to our inefficiencies and how we should not be facing this level of structural budget deficit when others in similar size are not.
Loren, and I know in these final minutes, we're almost at the bottom of the hour, and I know that you're busy out there with your roadshow. If you have a final statement or comment to make to our audience today, we want you to wrap it up and take this time to tell us you had a great opener, but maybe talk to our audience more about how you really differ from some of your key opponents and why they should give you the job versus Barbara Lee or Renee Webb or other candidates who are in this race.
Thank you for that opportunity. So let's acknowledge that we are in a unprecedented moment for our city. 86,000 Oaklanders united to reject the failed policies and leadership of former, now recalled and indicted Mayor Sheng Thao. With that, they said, we don't have 2 years to wait to turn things around and wait for the next general election. We need change now because that is the state that our city is in. We need a mayor who is able to hit the ground running. The difference between me and the rest of the candidates in this race is that I am the only one who has proven experience on the ground solving our tough problems at the local city level. I'm the only one who has delivered results in our highest priority areas: public safety, homelessness, housing, addressing the public infrastructure. Congresswoman Lee, who is my primary competitor, let's be real, it's a race between the two of us in terms of viable candidates to win. She does not have that experience. She has experience serving us, and I'm grateful and deeply respectful and appreciative for her over 50 years of public service. The last almost 3 decades have been in Washington, D.C., not here on the ground in Oakland. We need someone who's been on the ground, who knows what's going on and is able to drive us towards real results. In addition, I am not beholden to the political establishment. I'm an outsider in the political world. Came in 2019, beating a 16-year incumbent. So I was an outsider then, just as I am an outsider now. I have been challenging status quo, basic assumptions in how government has run, and made progress doing so. That's what Oakland needs in City Hall. Someone who is resolved, is going to make the hard and necessary choices that the political establishment won't allow folks to make. We need to bring everybody to the table to solve our budget challenges and not treat some groups or some entities as sacred cows that we're not even going to touch. We need to focus on saying no. It's easy to unify people and bring them into the room, and if you never have to say no. But we're going to have to say no to a lot of things until we can turn this around, build the revenues that put our city on a different trajectory. It's not about, you'll hear others talk about unity. Oh, I'm the candidate that can unify and bring people together. Well, any mayor will be able to bring people into the room by the nature of your position, by the nature of this city and what it has. The question is what happens in that room that actually turns our city around. That's what I'm focused on delivering, because I will always center, prioritize Oaklanders over special interests, over career advancement, over ideological crusades. That's what Oakland needs right now in this moment. That's what I'm offering, and that's why you should vote for me and see me as the next mayor to really set us on the right track. So I thank you guys for your time, for your partnership over the years, as I was a council member, and ask for your vote, your support, your contributions, financial contributions, and spreading the word on the difference that's here. I know that I'm the first to kick off this series of town hall forums with mayoral candidates. I challenge you to ask them detailed questions, see if they understand things as well as you have heard today, the details, the nuance that are necessary to really drive us towards results. I guarantee you there is a difference. And what we need right now is someone who's going to sweat the details and ensure sustained results and outcomes for our city. Thanks for your time.
Right. Thank you. And Derek, you are muted.
I was just saying, candidate, you missed my spark of brilliance. I said, candidate Loren Taylor, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts with our community. You know, this is an important race. This person will be in this position for almost 2 years. And there's a lot of, I think what we heard today is that there's a lot of work to be done in a short period of time to get the city back on track. So thank you so much. I'm going to toss it back over to my colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, Loren, so much for your time, and thank you for our moderators. I just want to remind everyone about some of the, these are some of the reoccurring events we have constantly every month, or every other month is our rental housing forum, open forum, where we can talk about trends, things that are happening with Dan Lieberman. Wayne Rowland, our board president, does a roundtable every month. Our next one is on the 18th. And then we have our member meeting every month. The last Wednesday of this month, good networking event where you come and meet with other rental housing providers and talk and share experiences and ideas. Some other upcoming events, we have Legislation Day next week, where we'll be heading out to Sacramento to meet with our state legislators and senators that represent the areas of Oakland and surrounding areas. So that's part of what EBRHA does. We go out every year, sit down, meet with them, and talk about issues, share our experiences as housing providers, some of the unintended consequences of some of the bills they're looking at. There's a lot of bills this year, so we'll be talking with them. And then we've got an event on the 19th with Intelligent Screening, renter screening company technology to help you get the most out of your screening technology tools. So that's a great event to come to learn more about technology and how it can help you screen for better renters. Danielle, is there anything you wanted to add? I want to just thank everyone for coming out today. Appreciate your participation in this event, and thanks again to Loren Taylor. We've got a big event coming up in May also, almost forgot about, is our Technology Innovation Conference. This is our annual event we have. It's in going to be out in Lafayette at the Veterans Memorial Center. So get your tickets now, register for that. It's a great event. Again, seeing how technology can help you save time, save money, and avoid a lot of the pitfalls now that technology is really an important piece of our lives. So yeah, it's a great event.
That's what I was going to add, is the tech conference. And for EBRHA members that are in attendance today, be sure to register before March 31st. We're running a promotion where your lunch will be included with the ticket that you purchase. So register before March 31st for special savings.
Loren, our members are motivated by food, FYI.
Now you tell me.
Anyway, thank you, everyone. It was great to have you here, Loren, again. And yeah, we'll see you out there in those streets.
Thanks a lot. Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Thanks, team. Bye-bye.